As international borders remain largely shut and thousands of planes grounded, there are concerns over the toll it's taking on pilots. Dozens have admitted to making errors to the United States aviation watchdog on their return to the skies, claiming they are a bit rusty for a lack of flying time. Incidents include a pilot forgetting to release the parking brake when pulling away from the gate. Another conceded he took 3 attempts to land his plane in windy conditions. A third pilot admitted to forgetting to de-ice the vehicle, which could affect the altitude and speed sensors. Some regulation making pilots complete a minimum number of takeoffs and landings have been waived. That's due to the pandemic. Sky News aviation commentator and pilot Byron Bailey joins me now. Byron, this is a big concern. This is, of course, the US example, but there's got to be a few things that you're concerned about here in Australia when we start to get the fleet back up in the air.
Yeah, it's a huge concern. And I spoke with some Qantas pilots yesterday. They're kind of rather concerned when they do start getting back, because if you haven't flown an aeroplane for over a year, it's not just the lack of stick and rudder manual flying skills. I mean, if you haven't ridden a bike for a while and you get on, you might be a bit wobbly for a few minutes, but you can't afford that kind of wobble when you get into an aeroplane. You have to be sharp. But that's only a small part of it. The fact is that aeroplanes are very sophisticated beasts, and pilots have to be rechecked in a simulator. And if you haven't done it for a long time, it's not like just doing a quick refresher. You have to actually almost start from the beginning and go through all the procedures.
And Byron, correct me here, or give me an idea. Before you can fly a commercial plane, do the pilots have to have flown a certain number of hours in the preceding months?
Yeah, I mean, it's just not the number of hours, it's the number of takeoff and landings. Like CASA insists that you do 3 night takeoffs and landings in the preceding 90 days. Otherwise, you're not current and you're not allowed to fly. But it's more than that. You have to have done a certain number of instrument approaches. But what's more important, and take, for example, Emirates with the 777, every 6 months, a crew, captain and co-pilot, would have to do a 2-day technical refresher and pass an exam on aircraft systems. Then they do 2 days in a simulator, 2 4-hour sessions. And in that, they go through all the emergency procedures. And some of them are very, very critical indeed. If that is required every 6 months, where you do 2 days in a simulator, if you haven't flown for a year or 18 months, then you're looking, and the opinion I got from these Qantas pilots is they think they'd need at least 6 simulator rides.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because it is a question of cost as well. For Virgin and Qantas, they're going to have to essentially retrain or refresh many of their pilots, and this is an emerging, I should say, huge cost for these airlines, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's the backlog. If you pilots have to go through, I mean, this is a 737 kind of what's known as a quick reference handbook, whereas you'll find Airbus and Boeing 777 have electronic checklists. But even so, it has all your normal procedures, but pilots have to know how to handle all the emergencies. And all these things in red are actually what's known as time-critical emergency actions. A 737 has a book like this, and you have a huge number of items where the pilots have to know by memory the initial actions to handle that stuff, and you can't afford to make a mistake. That's why they're going to need half a dozen rides in a simulator, and if you've got 1,000 pilots and only, let's say, 12 simulators, how many months is it going to take to even get everybody up to speed?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Byron. We might put that question to the airlines as well. As always, thanks so much for your expertise this morning.
You're most welcome, Laura.